Film, I would say, I would emphasize really, isn't a fan's film. So it isn't me having a deep-seated love of creation bands or B-sides or shenanigans. I was really interested in the individuals and the personalities because it's an extraordinary group of people. So most people reading or viewing, listening will know the Gallagher brothers, they'll know the nature of Alan McGee and Bobby Gillespie, and all these people are larger than life and unashamed men. And it's a big story about men. I'd love to say that it had a lot to do with women, but there's very little, because it's a very male environment, and it's about how men get on when you're striving to achieve, when you do achieve, when you have achieved, and how you deal with that. So that's the core, that's the spine of the film, or the documentary. The secondary thing to that is, yes, it is a music film for music lovers. When I finished college, when I started college, the very first or second week I was there, Upside Down came out as a single by the Jesus and Mary Chain. So the Jesus and Mary Chain went on to soundtrack that brilliant period of my life when I was going from boy to man. Then I came out and I got my first jobs, and you can soundtrack your life. You know, I was going to raves, I was watching the Primals, I was loving that whole thing. You know, and you had bands like Ride and all the, you know, the real heavy shoegazy guitar bands. I adored all of that. And then you come full circle to when I actually had my first success as a professional, which was around the time of Oasis and Britpop. And here you have me as an old man talking about it. So it's great. I lived the whole process as an onlooker, as a fan, not only of the music, but of the story. And as a documentarian, I strive to make films and tell stories that are universal, that my parents can enjoy, that my children can enjoy, that aren't net bots. In order to do that, you have to feel the story yourself, first and foremost. So I think creation is a great vehicle. It's a great example of something that is more than a rock and roll label. Something that is really, could have happened in any century. I don't think we've changed much, and I don't think we will change much. People have asked me time and time again, do you think this is the end of something? And I'm saying, well, no, it's the latest chapter. It's like the romantic poets. You know, it's like the war writers, the great painters, you know, whatever else. You have a collection of people who inspire each other, come together, and yet they do nothing that bears any resemblance to each other. How can anyone sort of take Primal Scream and Oasis and draw a parallel? Because there isn't. Musically, they're painting different pictures with different brushes and a completely different idea, and yet they're not dissimilar people. I mean, the really interesting thing about all of the key players on creation is they're all doing something almost better now. So it's not like a kind of old bunch of guys who have failed and kind of sitting around wondering about the glory days. You know, I mean, you've got the two other guys who ran it with Alan, run Wichita Recordings, who found the Yeah Yeah Yeahs and My Morning Jacket and all these amazing bands, currently releasing records by the Cribs and all these sort of people. And then you've got the bands themselves. Primal Scream have continued. Oasis may have split up, but they're not going away, are they? You know, they're probably still front cover material in most countries around the world, even as individuals. So I think it's interesting that maybe we get to a stage in our lives where we're quite content, where we're not self-conscious. And I think and the film, hopefully, that's one of the things that I've really aimed for with this, is to present a bunch of people who aren't giving you stock answers, who aren't sitting there sort of going, you know, should I sit like this? Shall I talk like that? They literally are pretty goddamn, you know, in the pub having a chat saying, this is the real deal, you know. So it's quite personal, but without being apologetic, without being, you know, where you get these people, you know, who are examining themselves You know, we don't need any of that sort of pseudo psychotherapy. So you guys will see the film and make your own minds up, you know.
Well, the interesting thing about creation is everybody's still alive at the moment, so it was a good time to make the film because, and then everybody's still kind of talking to each other, which is good. And then I think as well, I think it was a strange one doing the film because it was like, in some ways it was incredibly difficult for me because I don't really like going back, but in time and about anything really, to be honest. But it's like, but he put it in such a good way that it actually worked. And I mean, I'm really critical about anything that I'm ever involved in, and then, you know, I find it very difficult to actually like things that I was involved in, and sometimes. But I love the film. I mean, I've watched it 12, 13, 14 times, and the very first time I watched it, I actually with my friend Simon tonight, and I watched it and I actually was bewildered at first. I was like, I didn't know. And then a few people came in during the day, like Geldof came in. And by the end of it, I'd watched it about 4 times and he went, "It's fucking great." And I was like, all right, okay, but it's probably all right then. He goes, "Yeah, you know, I've got 7 companies that do, you know, videos and do it. I employ 800 people." And I'm like, it's great, you know. So that was kind of like, by that point I started to like it, you know.
And that was a hell of a compliment for me at that stage. Not only to have, because for my part, one thing that I have to emphasize is at no stage along the way was Alan involved financially or editorially. But there was always, I think, a decency between the pair of us, wherein I had no problem with sharing everything, and you know, we've worked backwards and forwards, albeit that, you know, we would speak every day for 3 weeks and then not at all for 6 months, you know, and that's fine, it was normal. But then to have, you know, having grown up in Ireland, and you have someone like Bob Geldof, who has gone on to become this worldwide symbol of whatever through Live Aid. But in Ireland, he was a rock star to us. And when I was a kid, I was looking at Geldof. To have him on the phone saying Geldof's in the background saying he likes your film, I nearly passed out. You know, that'll do me. You know.
Yeah, no. Well, Geldof was like, "Oh, now I understand why people respect you." Because he's like, I could never understand why anybody respected you.